Joe Hopkins here, and today I'm giving my list of 12 bands that I believe are horrendously underrated, right? I got my notebook here because everybody should have a notebook. It's my thought. Anyway, here we go. Which bands do you think will make it on here? Now, I'm not saying these bands don't have hits or that people don't know who they are, but they're just bands that didn't get the love I think they should have got. Let's start with it. Look, man, this band is one of the most influential rock bands of all time, UFO, right? A lot of you know who they are. I am shocked at how many people don't know who UFO is. They just don't know. I mentioned them, and people are like, "Who's that?" But when you talk or listen to interviews with bands, big name bands, like the biggest bands in the world, and ask them who their influences are, UFO comes up a lot. A lot of your favorite bands loved UFO, and UFO is an incredibly good band that doesn't get mentioned much, you know? You might know a couple of their songs, like Doctor Doctor or Rock Bottom. But listen to their other stuff, for God's sake. All their stuff was awesome. UFO was an awesome band that just didn't get the love. Just really didn't. They had a couple minor hits and that was it. But yeah, from the 70s, great band. Absolutely amazing band. And all the other bands loved them. It's worth checking out. Number 2, Rainbow. And I know a lot of you guys have heard of Rainbow, but a lot of people haven't. Once again, it's a band that I'm shocked at how many people don't know who that is. All right, if you know Deep Purple, their guitarist, Ritchie Blackmore, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, great rock guitarist. That was his band, his next band, his second band after Deep Purple was Rainbow. Ritchie Blackmore is amazing. And they got Dio. Dio was their singer. That's before Dio went over to Black Sabbath. He was the singer for Rainbow. Now, they went through some other singers. My favorite is Ronnie James Dio. And some people, even if you have heard their stuff, you might have heard one or two songs of theirs. You know, a lot of people know the album Rainbow Rising. Check out Long Live Rock and Roll. Great album. What was the one? Gates of Babylon, I think it was called. Amazing song. Ritchie Blackmore was doing stuff on the guitar that people just weren't doing then. Really, listen to his solos. Listen to the solos on a lot of the songs that he did with Rainbow. And you'll hear stuff that people weren't doing for another 10 years, became popular in the 80s, and this was the 70s. Rainbow was a really great band, and they don't get mentioned that much. Ritchie Blackmore doesn't get mentioned that much as he should, I believe, when they talk about great guitarists. And it might be because Ritchie Blackmore was a serious asshole. Everybody who knew him said he was. But he was a great guitarist, and Rainbow was a great band. It's worth checking out. The next one, a lot of you know this band, Nazareth, right? A lot of you know Nazareth from 2 songs, Love Hurts and Hair of the Dog. And that's about it. But their other stuff was amazing. Razamanaz was an amazing album. I had that on 8-track, if anybody remembers 8-tracks. I had Nazareth or Razamanaz album. It didn't have like hits on it, but it was an amazing album. And a lot of their stuff from that time period was just shockingly good. You know what I mean? But you don't hear it. You don't hear it on the radio. People don't really listen to it. If you're into rock and roll, if you're into heavy metal, it's worth listening to. They were one of those, like, you know, early metal, like hard rock bands that were just amazing and didn't get mentioned a lot. Really didn't. I thought they were great, to be honest with you. My personal opinion. They're worth checking out. Check them out. Go ahead, check out Razamanaz. That was an album by Nazareth, and it's worth checking out. The next one I'm going to mention is another one that you've heard of them, you know them, and you know a couple of their songs. And that's Foghat, right? You know Slow Ride Take It Easy, right? And people get a little tired of those hits because they had a couple of those songs that get played out on classic rock radio, but those are the only songs of theirs that get played a lot. Check out a lot of their 70s stuff. They were an amazing rock band, especially with like slide guitar, a lot of slide guitar stuff on there. Check out their self-entitled album, Foghat by Foghat. Great album. A lot of their stuff was just damned amazing. And it didn't make the radio. It didn't get a lot of love. It didn't get a lot of airplay. People just don't know their stuff. They don't. And, you know, there are those bands that had a couple of hits and you listen to their other songs, you're like, oh, that's why those were hits. Those were their only good songs. But bands like Foghat had so many good songs, and only a couple of them really got airplay. It's worth checking them out. It's worth checking them out. That's what I say. Let's move forward in time. We've been back in the 70s a bit here. Let's move forward in time to like late 80s, early 90s. Pixies. The Pixies. Good Lord, pick any of their first couple of albums and you get to hear what Kurt Cobain was really trying to be. And it shows. It really does. The Pixies are an amazing band that influenced the entire 90s and never got on the radio themselves, really. You know what I mean? They didn't make it into that big mainstream thing there. They always had a following, but they never made it into that big mainstream thing, like a lot of the bands that obviously were heavily influenced by them. Because a lot of the grunge bands are obviously influenced by the Pixies, and they made it, all those bands made it big, and the Pixies never did. They just stayed on the fringes. And, you know, the next band is same kind of thing, the Melvins. Listen to a lot of their early stuff, and you'll hear a lot of what influenced the 90s, along with the Pixies. The Pixies and the Melvins, those two bands influenced grunge and 90s alternative music almost more than anybody else, you know, and didn't really make the radio. Now, the Melvins are one of those bands that if you know about them, you know about them. And if you don't, you really don't. People who like the Melvins love the Melvins. You might not like them. I like them. I thought they were an excellent band. Like I said, unbelievably influential. If you like 90s grunge music, it's worth checking out the Melvins and the Pixies to just see where everybody was kind of coming from. Because, once again, two of the most influential bands of their time, and didn't really get played on the radio much, if at all, you know? All right, the next one is a band everybody's heard of. They had a string of hits, but I don't think people really understood them, and that is Cheap Trick. Now, I went to see Cheap Trick open for Heart the other month, right? And they were amazing live. They were great. I loved it. But here's the thing with Cheap Trick. Everybody knows Live at Budokan. Everybody knows their hits, the ones that were real radio friendly. But a lot of the stuff they did was really weird, and I believe pretty well ahead of its time. They're the kind of songs that would have fit in about 10, 15 years later, because they were just really strange for their time. If you listen to Dream Police, that's their one hit that really, you listen to it and really listen to it. It's a weird song when you really really pay attention to it. But it's, of their weird songs, it's the most radio friendly because they had some really weird stuff. I had an album of theirs they put out called Woke Up With a Monster, and that was an amazing album that was just strange. Just strange songs. The title track was a very strange song, very cool and worth listening to. And there's the thing about us musicians. A lot of times it's the really strange, interesting music that grabs our attention and motivates us and really inspires us. Cheap Trick is one of those bands that had a lot of strange songs. They did 2 songs on the soundtrack for the heavy metal motion picture. If anybody remembers that, it was an animated sci-fi film that came out in like 1980, R-rated, right? Don't play it for the kids. There's animated boobies in it. But Cheap Trick had 2 songs on the soundtrack that were just amazing, mind-blowing, and strange songs. This came out in 1980, and it sounds like something that would have come out like in the early 90s. That, you know, almost like industrial-ish kind of stuff, you know? Really cool stuff, though, and a lot of their music from that time period, early 80s, they had some very strange songs. Too strange for radio, but worth listening to. It's some of my favorite stuff, right? So next, let's go to number 8, a band that had a couple of huge hits that overshadowed all their other stuff, and that's Thin Lizzy. Get the Jailbreak album, right? It had a couple of big hits, The Boys Are Back in Town and the title track, Jailbreak. But those are the only 2 songs you hear. That's it. You don't hear any of their other songs, and the whole album is good. The whole album is that good. It's as good as the hits, but it didn't get airplay. So, you know, you might have heard The Boys Are Back in Town so many times you just want to puke. And then it's like people don't realize how good the rest of the album is. The rest of their stuff is. They weren't around that long, unfortunately, just because their lead singer drank himself to death. So, you know, Irish band. That's the stereotype. The Irish drink themselves to death, and this guy tried to like own that stereotype, and he did. He owned it, and he did it. But what they ended up putting out was amazing music, really good stuff. If you like rock and roll, the hard rocking kind of stuff, it's worth a listen to, right? It's one of those bands that everybody knows one song and nobody knows the rest of their stuff. And the rest of their stuff is really good. I think that band should have got more love. They should have had a couple more singles off of, especially the Jailbreak album. They should have had a couple more singles off of that. The next one I'm going to mention, Coheed and Cambria. If anybody remembers them, they were kind of like a progressive metal band, had a couple of hits in like 05, 06, like mid-2000s, had a couple of hits, but then they just kind of faded away and everybody forgot about them, and nobody really listened to the rest of the album. I knew very few people personally that actually bought the album. But their albums are amazing, and they're an amazing band, especially if you like real concept album, progressive rock, prog metal kind of stuff, which I do. That kind of music can go really wrong, admittedly, but Coheed and Cambria did it really right, and it's worth checking out. 2 albums I loved of theirs, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth, 3. I don't know why it's 3. I guess they just numbered all their albums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, and Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star, which I think they did 2 of those. They had I think it was Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, and then they did Volume 2. Both of them are really good, honestly. One of those was what their hits were off of. Those Good Apollo albums. I forget if it was the first or second one that it had the hits off of, but I had those albums. They were really good. I bought them on CD at the time. I really liked them. I thought they were one of the best rock bands out during that period of time, and they just, I don't know, they had like 2 songs that got a little bit of love on MTV and then gone, you know, which it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have gone that way. They're too good a band for that. So number 10, Uriah Heep. All right. And some of you are saying, who? Some of you know. Some of you know. I really like Uriah Heep. Their album Demons and Wizards was a really, really great album. And they had a number of really great albums. Progressive rock band from the 70s that had a couple of minor hits, you know. They didn't really get a lot of love, but their stuff was really good. It was way better than ever got acknowledged, you know? I always wondered, okay, you're going to play bands like Yes on the radio as much as you do. Why not Uriah Heep? They're very good band. They're worth checking out. They're worth, and especially nowadays, you don't even have to buy the album. We got streaming. You can just, it doesn't cost you anything to give it a shot, to just go, okay, is this any good? You know, and they are that good. Now, I was only going to do 10, but I thought I mean, there are a lot of bands I could put on here, but I did think of 2 more that I really thought should be on here. Number 11 was Porno for Pyros. If anybody remembers them, a lot of people remember Perry Farrell's his bigger band, Jane's Addiction, right? A lot of people remember that, but he put together a second band for a little while called Porno for Pyros. They did 2 albums in like the early 90s. I think it came out in like 91 and 93, something like that. And then they didn't do anything for like years and years. But that self-entitled album was amazing. In fact, those 2 albums they put out in the early 90s were amazing albums. They just got a little bit of buzz and then poof. And I think part of it's because it seemed like Farrell just didn't put as much into like promoting that as he did Jane's Addiction. So, but it's one of those things where it's a band worth listening to. It's worth checking out, especially if you like alternative rock. Jane's Addiction was one of those first bands to really get in that alternative label. And Porno for Pyros was very alternative rock. That's what it was designed to be. And yeah, their first album, that self-entitled album, is worth a listen. It's worth a listen. If you haven't heard it, I think a lot of you out there might really like it. And that's what we're looking for, especially musicians like me, like a lot of you guys. We're looking for that next thing that really like inspires us, blows your minds, makes you think, ooh, I like that. I could use some of those ideas. And that Porno for Pyros is one of those bands where you listen to and it gives you ideas, you know? A real musician's band. And last, but certainly not least, I had to put this band on here, Kix. A lot of you know Kix. They're one of those 80s rock bands. They weren't really hair metal, but they kind of fit in with the hair metal thing. So they just got lumped in there, and at which point they became more hair metal-y just because that became the thing. I never knew Kix wasn't better known than they are, and it's because I grew up in Baltimore, where Kix was from Maryland. They were a Maryland band. Baltimore's where they really made it big. They were huge in Baltimore. I thought they were a huge band, right? And then I find out they're not nationwide, right? Where I grew up and where I live now, they're such a big deal, probably because I moved west. Right now I live in West Virginia, right across the river from Western Maryland. And all the members of Kix are from Western Maryland. The singer, Steve Whiteman, is from Piedmont, West Virginia, which is in the county that I live in. Like, these are local people. So apparently they were a bigger deal here than they were everywhere else. I've since learned that a big chunk of the country did, you know, they were one of those bands, they had 1 or 2 hits and then poof, nobody gave a shit. But they're such a good band. They are. And it's not just because I grew up listening to their music. I really think they're a great band. Check out the Blow My Fuse album. Really, really great stuff. If you're just into straight up badass rock and roll, Kix is a band worth listening to. And there you go. There's my 12 bands that I believe are horribly underrated. And the whole point of doing a list like this, just to let you know, the whole point is to give you guys an idea of who you should check out. A lot of you guys are musicians, and most of these are bands that are worth listening to for the musicianship, for ideas. A lot of them, you get ideas from this kind of stuff. Us musicians do. And a band that gives you ideas, inspires you a bit, makes you think, oh, I like that. I'd like to do something similar to that. That's gold. That is gold. And I'd say the ones that I believe are the most influential for that kind of thing, honestly, like Cheap Trick and Coheed and Cambria, those two are bands that are just amazing wells of ideas. You hear it and you're like, ooh, I like what they did with that. I think I could use something, take it in a different direction, right? Because, you know, and especially not the hits, not the few songs, especially with Cheap Trick, not the songs that got radio airplay, not I Want You to Want Me, not Surrender, not the songs that go to the B-sides, go to the deeper cuts. They did a lot of really strange stuff. And so did Coheed and Cambria. So did a lot of these bands. They did some interesting things that don't get played because they're not necessarily commercial, but they're worth listening to. And that's the point. And yeah, I hope you liked my list. You guys should also check out my very inspiring music. There's streaming down below, and a playlist comes up in a minute here. It says, I Didn't Get a Memory. That's my album. It's on, the playlist takes you to YouTube, a playlist on YouTube where you can listen to it. You don't even have to leave YouTube. You can just click on it, check out a couple songs, see if you like it. If you don't, cool. But you might really like it. Honestly, when people suggest stuff, I check it out because I might like it. And that's a real passion of mine, learning about some music I hadn't heard before. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. I love y'all. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye.